All right, chapter 3 should be pretty easy here as far as the notes go. Really, all that we're getting here is a different set of endings. Okay, we're going to start dealing with the second declension and specifically the masculine. There's a few things that are a little different in the neuter, but really that's it. Okay, it's pretty much the same concepts that we saw in chapter 2. It's just now we're getting a different group, a different uh, category, if you want to say it that way, of nouns that use different endings, but the concept is exactly the same. So, as we saw in chapter 2, Latin nouns have different endings to signify meaning, right? So, I just think back to that first declension chart, and ah. Each one of those endings, those changes in the word, uh, show you that the word's being used specifically in a different way in each um, for each ending, right? It could be the subject. It has a different ending than if it's the direct object. These endings are called cases, okay? The different case endings, okay? And they fall into 5 different categories. So you have different cases, right? Are the endings, and there's 5 different categories for these same cases. And those are called declensions. Things that we should already hopefully be grasping, uh, I would hope. The first declension, which we just learned last chapter, was identified by a genitive singular that ended in AE. We should be able to understand that. Okay. But moving on to the second declension, masculine. Okay. So there's masculine or neuter nouns in the second declension. We're just going to deal with masculine here for right now. Neuter will be next chapter. It's even easier once we learn this. So the second declension has a genitive singular ending in I, specifically. The nominative forms generally end in a US, and some of them end in an ER. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of a variety. Okay, you just sort of have to know those words. The nice thing about the nominative forms is that you're always given those, right? The vocab tells you what those are. Um, so here we go. Here are our endings. It's a US or an ER. It's an I. Genitive, dative O. Accusative ablative, long O. And then vocative is the weird one. This is the whole reason why we need to talk about the vocative, is it could be an E, an ER, or an I. These are slashes here. That made it worse. Slash ER slash I. Okay. Plural, we have I, aurum, is, os, is, I. Okay. And if you notice, some of these are similar to what we saw in first declension, and some of them are a little bit different, but we'll talk more about that here in a second. We'll draw a comparison there. Okay, so there's your endings. Us or er, us, e, o, e, eri, I, orum, is, os, is, I. For second declension masculine, that end in er and r. Some will keep the er in their stem, while others will actually drop out the e. So we had the word ager, right? And its genitive form was agri, so that e drops out. Okay. We also have puer. Plural or genitive is pueri, so that actually keeps the er. Right? That's what we're talking about here. The nice thing is that this one is always given to you. The genitive is always given to you, and you should just be able to look at it, and there you go. Right? It's given. Just know it, memorize it. Okay. Last thing with the notes here, vocative. Only in the second declension, masculine, singular specifically, do endings differ from the nominative. Okay, vocative and nominative are the same for every other instance except this one specific place. And here's how it changes. So for nouns that end us in the nominative, this form is the nominative, and then this is the vocative over here. The vocative ending for a noun that ends us is an e. If it's an er, it stays er or r. Okay, so like we're, the vocative is we're. And for ius nouns, the vocative ending is just an I, which means that we get rid of the us. Right? So a word like filius just becomes, in the vocative, it becomes fili. We just get rid of that us. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. That's the rule. That's the pattern. You'll see this. It's vocative though, so it's not really used a ton, but vocative case. Okay, so US, it changes to an E, so this would be like amicus. Okay, it becomes amique. The US changes to an E. Weir, it stays weir. Filius gets rid of the US and changes it just to an I. Okay. Now, I would suggest declining these. I'll give you these to decline on your own on the sheet. Just a little note about something called apposition. Okay, and you can read this here. But an appositive is a word that's placed next to another noun in the sentence, giving more details. So, if I said, I saw Zoe, my student, in the hallway, okay, what we actually say is that my student, okay, my student here, is in apposition with Zoe. Okay, it's the same exact person. It's just giving extra information. But this is just something to keep in mind. Okay, it's basically a little phrase that's giving a little bit more detail about a person. It's the same person. Zoe is my student, and my student is Zoe, right? But it's just this idea of adding extra information. Okay. In Latin, an appositive is generally separated by commas, and it pretty much always really agrees in gender, number, and case. Okay, those three ways. All right. Now, before we end this video, that was the note sheet. Pretty simple, pretty harmless, right? It's just that declension, that set of endings. I just wanted to draw your attention. So if we had the word boy, right, to this, puer, pueri, masculine. The translations in Latin for these cases, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative, vocative, are still the same ones that I told you before. If it's nominative, it's still, the boy. If it was genitive, it would be, of the boy. Dative, to or for the boy. Accusative, the boy, and this is not your subject here. Accusative, by, with, ablative, by, with, from, the boy. And vocative case, just boy, right? So, same exact concept. These don't change. It's just we're adding extra words. But the same exact concept applies from chapter 2. Last thing I wanted to do, draw your attention to, here are two different declension charts. Yep, that's it. Okay, I fully declined puella for you. I, arum, is, as, is, I. Okay? If we were to decline numerous, it's the same exact process. Your nominative is still given to you. Your genitive ending is given to you, so numerus, numeri. And then all we do is, because it's second, it doesn't have an AE, like puelli, it has an I. Okay? So we're going to add our second declension set of endings. It's the same concept. It's just different endings because of different declensions. So it'd be numerus, numeri, numero, okay, numerum. And if you notice, that's similar to the AM. It's just a UM now. I want to make sure that's right. Yeah, UM now instead of an AM. Numero, still a long vowel, long O instead of a long A. And then because it's numerus, US, it'd be numere. Right? It's a weird looking E, the way it's written. That makes it worse. There we go. Plural, okay? Numeri. If we look, we have numeri in the genitive, and then I again in the nominative plural, just like we have AE and AE here, drawing similarities. Numerus in the genitive becomes numerorum, ORUM, okay? Which is similar to ARUM here. Numeris, these are the same exact endings. Numeris, OS instead of AS. Right, so these endings are very similar. And then numeri and numeri. There you go. Okay, so the best thing that I can suggest right now is, besides studying these endings, us, e, o, o, I, or, me, so, cease, is draw connections between what you already know, this first declension, this first declension stuff. Draw connections between that and the new stuff that you're learning, right? And there's a lot of similarities, in the accusative, in the both accusatives, the dative plural, ablative plural, genitive plural, right? There are a lot of similarities between what we already know, even this long O instead of a long A. very similar to what we already know. The more that you can draw connections, the easier this becomes, right? So that would be my biggest thing, is besides just studying all of these endings, is to take some time and sort of work smarter, not harder, and draw connections, right? We know first declension. There's going to be similarities with the second declension. But besides that, what I would like you to do is to try and go back to the note sheet and try and decline Weir and try and decline Amigos.